Oh, go on then, I'll squeeze it in. Bonus book review time. John Francis Bray's God and Man. So, what does this one talk about? Well, nicely enough, it took what I already thought and made it better. Christian, you have been trying to find Christ for 18 centuries. Where have you been looking? Up in the sky? Lost in vague imaginings and futile hopes and wishes? And yet all this time, Christ has been your neighbour, and you have used him harshly, while cursing the Jews for putting him to death. Christ, like all others, only disappeared in one incarnation to appear again in another. He is immortal here on earth. You meet him every day, toiling in the workshop or the mine, or a miserable tramp having no place to lay his head. He told you all this, but you did not comprehend the great truth, for your eyes were obscured by the glittering frauds of the church and the world. Common men and women have seemed too common to be Christ. You, like the Jews, look even today for a king coming in great glory. In a nutshell, I used to be Christian, I became an atheist, and then I discovered spirituality again in the form of Taoism. And it was mainly Alan Watts who pulled us into it. I'd watch his videos on YouTube, and he would basically... Alan Watts covers all religions, basically. He's kind of just like a spiritualist. That's the only really way you can talk about him. But he's a very reasonable spiritualist. He goes on like observation, personal feeling, and all this kind of stuff. And John Francis Bray basically talks about the same thing Alan Watts is talking about. That there's one of the main things in this is that there's just a universal I. Not that kind of I, you know what I mean. As me, the thing, the spirit, the pilot in the machine. It's the same thing in absolutely everybody. It's the same thing in all of the animals. That there's this omnipresent infinite, that's the way he talks about it. It's everywhere. It's intelligent. That we're not the most intelligent things in the world. We're a finite being trying to perceive an infinite thing. And we can only perceive it so far as a man can perceive it. Just like a parrot or a bird or a worm can perceive the world the way it does, we perceive it the way we do. And we can't, because it's infinite. It's the whole thing. Like the whole phrase Alan Watts says, it would be like an eye trying to see itself, or teeth trying to bite themselves. It's the same kind of philosophy. So it's divided into 4 sections. The present dispensation, a new dispensation, a necessity for a new dispensation, and an appeal to all classes. So we'll start off with number 1. So the first section starts off the same way a lot of these old books do, with a load of pages missing. It goes from 1 to 7. So God knows what was on those other pages, but that happens a lot in these old books that talk about the truth. Pages just vanish, and they're nice enough to leave the page number there to let you know. So anyway, a few pages disappear, but the subjects that they're talking about is essentially priestcraft has ruined religion. So what he means by this is that the rituals and the misleading and the power, the silly supernaturalism of the story of Christ has ruined it. They've upstaged the message, basically. It's become drowned in the whole magic of it by turning him into God, by having him walk on water, by having him raise people from the dead. You're losing the message. You're losing the metaphor behind it. He contrasts theology with natural religion. Theology is what he calls essentially priestcraft. It's the meddlesome, we're in charge, you must do what we say, here are the rituals, here is what I demand from you, I'm in control of you. The theology is that, and a natural religion is based on science, essentially. It's based on reason. It's something you can observe about yourself, observe about other people. It can be figured out. So he argues for a necessity in a natural religion, and we need to get rid of theology. So a true religion consists in right action towards your fellow man. Moral law is a scientifically observable thing. It's real. And like any law, if you break it, you feel pain. So the second section, he calls for a new religion that goes hand in hand with science and reason and observation. He explains way more than what I've put on the list here, but just for brevity's sake, I've missed quite a bit out. So here's his list. A basis for a new religion lies upon the following things. 1. An ultimate and original something. 2. The necessary universality of this something. 3. The unity of this God with everything visible and invisible. 4. The manifestation of this God through creative outflow of diversified forms of existence. 5. that if God and all things are one, God and man are one, and all mankind are one. 6. The consciousness that refers to itself as the I inside the visible body is the divine sonship. 7. That every atom in the universe is an intelligent entity. Oh, and 8. I'll quote this one. This original principle, or God, being necessarily infinite in every particular and consequently inscrutable, can only be very imperfectly conceived of by finite beings. Therefore, every theology, tradition, record, or belief which affects to authoritatively personify this God or principle, give it a specific shape or abode, or to claim special revelation as to its desires and intentions in regard to man, is an incongruous absurdity, having no foundation in facts or of the nature of things. Number 9, that although men die and are reborn again, the I never dies. It's born again with each generation, and that constitutes immortality. 10. Therefore, man is immortal and constantly comes back to this world, so we have a vital responsibility to make it a heaven or turn it into a hell. Pretty encouraging stuff. Why wouldn't we start thinking like this? I'm down with it. To be honest, that all makes sense to me. Where else could there be except this place? And what is this divine spirit? It is a sense and feeling of unity with God, in conjunction with unity and love towards man. The God-man must act towards his fellow man as God acts towards him. God is his umpire and judges him through his own identity. There is no distant, personal God that may be looking another way and can be deceived, but himself is God incarnated, and a man cannot believe his own lies. I'm you. See, you watching this screen? I'm you, and you're me. And that's beautiful. That should make you happy. So we should be nice to each other. We shouldn't cause each other unnecessary pain. We shouldn't subject each other to toil and torture and warfare and invasion. We shouldn't do that, you know? What's wrong with an idea like this? Does the world around us give us nothing to worship? Yes, all the way upward through life. For the spirit of worship is the spirit of love. Beginning in childhood, what does the child worship and trust to? Mother and father. What does the young man worship? The woman he loves. What do parents worship? Their children. We are compelled to worship the infinite through its infinite incarnations, while implicitly trusting it as a parent. And is not this all that is necessary? Do we not appreciate the giver through his gifts? And so long as human beings endure, there will be something to worship, a visible incarnation and approximation of the invisible perfection. We need no priests or temples or ceremonials to express our divine emotions. The worship arises spontaneously. We are constrained to worship some human form as the incarnation of the ideal. When one object is lost, the heart seeks another. A healthy and a natural man or woman can always find someone to worship. To worship is a necessity of love, and is its highest form of expression. Worship is not fear nor reverence, but love. And love is but an influx of the divine spirit. What a great gift is life, and how much greater is immortality, or continued existence in countless incarnations. And what sufferings does this immortality entail under adverse conditions? Which of us desires inordinate toil, semi-starvation, a constant abode among squalor and filth, a home in the workhouse or the prison? Who wants to be a conscript and die in the torture of the field of battle? We have suffered all this in the past, generation after generation, and at last knowledge has led us to discover the tree of life, and we know that we shall live forever. Let us now direct all energies to the destruction of evil surroundings and their replacement by good ones. And now, men and women of all classes, high or low, rich or poor, the time has come to choose between the old and the new. Try to let your reason and not your prejudices guide your judgment. We live in an age of irreligion, crimes, intemperance, plunderings, and demoralizing associations. What possible good can flow from these things? We live in an era of business depressions, uncertainties, losses, impoverishments, breaches of faith, non-employment, or inordinate toil. Are these things desirable and necessary to be retained? We live in an era of religious blindness, hypocrisy, disbelief in God, and mistrust in man. The moral constitution of the nation is giving way under the perverse influences that operate on every class and condition in life. Blind guides hold forth in the sanctuary and confuse the understanding. Men are driven from God by their surroundings and are everywhere at war with each other. Is it not time for a new and a higher dispensation that will put an end to the multitudinous evils of the present? Is there a God and a moral law? Or is all religion a pious fraud, invented to hold in slavery the minds and bodies of men and women? Do we not need a grand and universal awakening to the importance of the crisis and the issues that are coming upon the world?